Good afternoon, everyone. So, figured we'll start this off. Sitting here at work, I have a little bit of time before paint gets here. I ran out, and so my partner will be here probably about the next hour. So let's discuss this murder I was talking about. Obviously I feel really awkward right now discussing it. Let's start off by saying I'm not a fucking angel. Don't care to be. I do want to be a good person. I try to be. I've made more bad choices than any normal human being. That's for sure. But yeah, so a little bit of a prologue. My ex, yes, I consider her my ex. Is she by law? No, I'm still married to her. However, I haven't got around to filing the paperwork. I'm not too worried about rushing it, really. She's in federal prison and will be there for a long time. And $400 or so I could spend on my new kid and my family. So that's what I continue to do right now. Working on getting a house. My name is James. Back when I was in the dope game, everyone called me Slim for obvious reasons. So yeah, let's get into it. My wife killed her daughter's father, David Heisler. And the way it was portrayed on the news and the media was all a big lie. Everything that happened was just false. I was in prison before she decided to take action against this dude. I had warned him for years to stop fucking with her. And there was one point where I had actually snatched him up and had him in a garage and let him know, hey dude, you're fucking with her life, you're fucking with her kid, you need to stop. Seriously, just stop. However, he couldn't stop. He was under orders from his stepmom that if he wanted to live in the house that was his father's, that the only way that he could live there and have their support is if he was pursuing custody of his daughter. So I got out of prison, and before that we had been together, we dated and blah 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 blah. But while I was in prison, we weren't together, and she got with David. They had a kid. She was living with him, and then shit started going sideways. I do apologize, I'm moving around a lot. I'm that way anyway. Kind of a natural tweaker. I have energy constantly. It is what it is. Get over it. That's why I'm thin. So, when I got out, she started stalking me. And eventually, when I found out about it, I confronted her, and she wanted to get together and talk. So I did. Like, whatever, we can be adults. Found out that she had her own apartment that her dad was paying for. Her and her daughter were living there. She had sole physical custody of Mariah. And after talking with her, we started seeing each other a little bit more and eventually got back together. Well, because of my parole and different things of that nature. You know, you have to report your address and blah, 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 blah. Well, I was living with my mom and my stepfather. So, you know, you can imagine how that is. And going down the route with my mom, that lady called the cops on me more than anybody. And even did some prison time because of an incident that had at her house, her finding paraphernalia. But that's another story. So me and Kelly get together. Eventually we move in together. I start paying all the bills, which is fine. I'm very traditional. If I'm going to be the man of the house, I will work, I will pay bills, I will do my best to provide for my family. Even if she's just my girlfriend and whatever. But I had zero intention of building a relationship with her daughter. Not in the sense that I didn't want to be I don't know how to say it. I wasn't trying to be daddy. Let's just say that. Well, it turned into that. Her daughter latched on to me over time, and we built a great relationship. However, David, knowing that me and Kelly were back together, lit a fuse under his little ass, and the jealousy popped out heavy. We were planning on going out to Wyoming to go live with her dad, start over out in Wyoming. However, because of family court and David and his stepmom, we were fighting with that. Well, keeping in mind, Kelly had sole physical custody of Mariah. David had visitations. And one day, after Mariah comes back from her few days that she spent with her dad, Kelly's in the bathroom, giving her a bath. I'm out in the living room watching TV, and Kelly comes running out, bawling, freaking out. And I told her, you know, calm down, tell me what happened. She tells me, hey, Mariah's telling me all this shit that happened over at her dad's house. I don't know what to do. And I was like, look, calm down. Go back in there. Don't be crying. Dry her off. Bring her out here. And as calm as you were in the bathroom, go through the exact conversation that you had with her in the bathroom. And I'll record it. So we did that. This is when shit got interesting. And I will share this video and upload it so everyone can see the discussion that we had with Mariah. Now that everything's over with, it's been many years, I can share it. Now, Mariah tells us, short, simple, sweet of it, that she watched her dad beating off at the computer, watching porn. And the way that she described it wasn't like she just saw a little bit of it. She saw enough to describe what the man and the woman on the computer were doing and what she perceived was happening. Well, I'm a protector. I'm a skinny dude. I'm tall. However, I'm quite assertive and aggressive. I've calmed down a lot as I've gotten older. Going to prison does that to you. It changes your mentality. The perceived disrespect turns into some hypersensitive type shit. I'd already gone to prison for aggravated assault, for protecting a woman, and that's another story. But yeah. So naturally, my first reaction was to go and stomp this dude out. But I didn't. Instead, we called him and asked him about the incident, and he denied it. That's what threw up my red flags, is the denial. If your 4-year-old daughter catches you beating your meat at a computer, just admit it. Yeah, it's embarrassing. Like, come on now. Just admit it. It's whatever. However, she was 4 years old, and a 4-year-old seeing that kind of shit, it's kind of difficult to explain to her the overall picture, but the denial is really what set me off. Well, a little bit down the road, we decided, you know what, we need to just get out of town. We need to get out to Wyoming. Well, his stepmom was a real estate broker, LDS, in Santa Clara, Utah, and she had some pull with the DA, with the police, with the court, with the church, primarily the church. The church runs that state. So, and no, I'm not LDS. We weren't raising Mariah LDS. So no, we didn't go to church. No, she wasn't going to church and like getting all into it with her grandparents. The big issue, however, was her grandmother, step-grandmother, mind you, had this fantasy about having Mariah in her custody. And she was the one footing the bill for all of the court and the lawyers that she had. And of course, she had a good little skeezy ass lawyer. We had some public pretender that was hired that cost us $1,200 for every show up, for him to show up at court each time, out of pocket. Motions cost money, all of it. It's a lot. And family, if you've ever done family court, it's not a pretty business. It's pretty brutal. And really, it's just brutal. But when it came time for a decision about them letting us go to Wyoming, it was denied on the pretext that Mariah had already established herself into the community, that she was embedded, and we're talking about a 4-year-old that doesn't go to church, is in the sole physical custody of her mother. Dad only has visitations. What kind of establishment has she really made? Basically none, in all reality. But it was denied. They told us that we couldn't leave the state, but we could live within the state. If we moved to a different county, that we had to establish it through, let David know. We didn't need permission, we just had to let him know. So I found an apartment in a different county, about 45 minutes north of where we were living in St. George. We went to Cedar City. I got an apartment there. Well, this pissed David off because now he had to come halfway to pick up his daughter for his fucking visits. Oh, that was too difficult. Oh my gosh. Well, you got to think about it. This dude was a busboy for a restaurant. It's called Sully's Steakhouse. And it was a far removed uncle of mine in my family that owned that company, that owned the restaurant. He was a busboy, making shit, living with his mom and his daddy, and using their money to fight this shit. And you gotta think about my position. I railroaded myself right into the responsibility of this 4-year-old girl. So, tipping his little bitch ass over for us moving became another issue. And he tried essentially targeting me, saying that I was a risk and a threat to his daughter. And his stepmom didn't like the fact that I was running a tattoo shop out of my apartment. Well, as long as you're not giving set prices and you're not advertising and you have the right biohazard equipment and everything is sterile, you don't need a license. You don't need a business license. Well, They wanted to make a big issue out of this, that I was a bad guy because I was a tattoo artist, and oh my God, I've been to prison and I'm a drug addict and blah, 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 blah. Mormons hearing that are, of course, going to side with that. So they filed an ex parte motion because we moved to Cedar City and granted temporary custody to David and his mom. And that really set us off. And that made Kelly spiral, because now, after what she heard about the bathroom incident and David outright lying about it, we had suspicions of other things. The signs were there. And the local law enforcement in that area was well aware of who I am and what I'm about, and made it very clear that anything ever happened to this dude, that I'd be suspect number one. Yeah, so after that, Kelly spiraled, and I spiraled. We ended up getting married. We had a small little gig, and we did it to help give me rights to Mariah to fight. I probably still have rights because technically she is my stepdaughter, and I do have some sort of legal rights to her. However, I haven't seen her since basically when they took her from us, and what little visitation time I got to have with her in the interim. But I was dealing with a wife that was emotionally and spiritually giving up very hardcore. She was literally in the worst headspace. Suicide was a risk. What can you tell a significant other when their child just got ripped from their hands? There's nothing you can say to make it better. All you can do is be there and be a support, literally. That's all you can do. Just be a support. And I ended up breaking my sobriety, started trafficking drugs again. I started doing it under her nose. I was making trips to Vegas and back while she was having visitations with Mariah. No, I didn't have drugs around her when she was in the house. Wasn't going to do that. Picking up quantities of black and clear wasn't something I was going to do while we were all together. Well, because of everything, I started trafficking again, and lo and behold, the stepmother, Debbie, had invested in a private investigator to follow me around. And knew I was being followed, just couldn't fucking pinpoint it. I've been doing the cat and mouse game with law enforcement for a really long time. Quite keen to it. But that's another issue. I left that life. So yeah. Well, one day I was dry. I didn't have anything. I was starting to get sick. And after Kelly's visit, on the way home back to Cedar City, I was starting to have chest compression feeling from withdrawing from the black. And she just outright said, well, why don't you go pick some up? Because she thought I was just doing Roxy's. And she just blatantly said, why don't you go get some black? Go make a run. So she knew. She already knew that I was lying to her. She knew what I was doing. So I was like, fuck it. Now she's in the passenger seat with me. So she relapsed. She had like 11 years clean and relapsed. And we started going down that rabbit hole together. Obviously, the stupidest fucking choice you can do is to use drugs while you're in a fight for custody. Yeah, not a bad idea. I don't recommend it. Well, I ended up violating my parole. And for dirty UAs. My PO was quite impressed with the amount of chemicals that were in my body. He has never had a situation where his client was dirty for everything. Like, had Suboxone, heroin, the clear, the powder, and pot. And got sent back to prison for my violations. During that time, Kelly ended up losing the apartment because I was no longer the cash cow. And my people that I was dealing with out in Vegas weren't going to be messing with her. So there was no option for her to take my place with what I was doing. So instead, she decided to associate herself with all the peons that were customers of mine or people that were within that network. Found a lady to go move in with, and she moved in. Well, she ended up running into some people that she shouldn't have ran into. Some people that have bodies under their belt. And she eventually convinced them that it was a great idea to fucking bury this dude. Well, I did a little over a year in prison. She was sleeping around, doing dope, and I knew about it. I already had people on the yard bringing me information from the outs. So I ended up calling it off with her. Said I was done. We're done. Not playing this game. She wasn't being honest with me when I confront her about sleeping with other dudes, selling dope, doing dope. So I was done. And I had decided that I needed to get my ass on a different path. So I had been given a different parole date, and I denied it. I denied the board's parole offer. They rescinded my date and had to go back before the board, and the board asked me why I wasn't going to take their parole, and I told them, I was like, hey, check it out. You guys had me do a drug program for over a year trying to get me to not have a criminal mentality or mindset, to be able to get me to acclimate to society as fast as possible. And they wanted me to go to a halfway house. Well, this halfway house had just had a huge incident where 92 some odd guys had just been arrested for drug use. Well, in this halfway house, drugs are rampant. I was introduced to needles when my first round of prison, and that's what turned me into a heavy junkie. But the board kind of grilled me and let me go. It wasn't a board member, it was a representative. I went back to where my unit, I was in a work camp called Lone Peak. I was in Draper, Utah prison at the time. Everyone thought I was crazy because I pretty much told the board to pound your parole. Either give me the rest of my time or let me go. You know, what's it going to be? I'm not taking a parole. I can't do it. It's not going to happen. And I already had plans to go to Scottsdale, Arizona to go live with my little sister and start over. Well, a week later, I get my new date. My due date was a week and a day away. I ended up doing an extra 31 or 33 days or something like that. and they let me go, terminated my number. Already had money set aside for my little sister. I went and got a phone. Had a buddy that I was in the program with that picked me up at the gate. Cashed my check. Went and sat and drank with my buddy that night and his woman at a hotel. And then hopped on the bus and headed to Arizona the next day. On the way through Utah, we stopped in St. George at a little rest stop for about 15 minutes. And I'm telling you, I have a giant network in that area. I was very well known there, sadly. And someone ran into me. Next thing I know, you know how social media is. All of a sudden, everyone was bum rushing me about being in St. George. Letting them know, hey, I'm not here to stay. I'm on a bus. I'm not turning back. Not going to that area. It's impossible. Can't do it. If I'm there, I'm going to be doing bad shit. It's just how it works. So, next thing I know, and mind you, me and Kelly hadn't corresponded for over a year at this point because she was doing her gallivanting bullshit. And she got super pissed off and acted confused, like, why aren't you coming home? You have an address, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, an address? What are you talking about? I don't have an address. You're sleeping with some fucking dude. You're running around doing dope. You're trying to sell dope. You're getting in trouble back to back. They know you're fucking trafficking. They're trying to get you. You're fucking, no, I'm done. Mind you, this whole time, over a year, she never gained her custody back. Just fucking up and fucking up. Well, she really hoped that I was going to be coming back and be the savior and be Prince Charming and be Lancelot and slay all the dragons. Well, that wasn't how it was going to work. Now she had to depend on all her tweaker friends. And you can imagine how that goes. So, now she's desperate. And she gets her roommate and this dude that she was fucking, call him Hollywood, to help her get rid of David. And they decided that they were going to go and kick in his door, beat the shit out of him a little bit, put a pillowcase over his head, threw him in his car, drove him out to the middle of Arizona up in the mountains, in desert mountains, and did what they did with him out there and left him there. Now, in southern Utah, it's a tri-state corridor. From St. George, Utah, you go through to the Arizona border into Beaver Dam area, and then you cross another border into Mesquite, and then into Vegas. So automatically it became federal. They took him from Utah into Arizona, and then when they were done doing what they were doing with him, they decided they were going to run into Mesquite and try to disguise Hollywood a little bit. They went into a casino, they got footage of it, and they cut his hair while they were there. So, obviously some sketchy shit. Well, they left his car in Beaver Dam and went back to Utah. Well, in the process of beating dumbass up, there was blood that was left behind in the house. And David's dad came home, saw the blood, saw signs of some sort of struggle in the house. David's gone, the car's gone. They have no idea what happened. Now you have the missing persons report going everywhere. And mind you, this is 2 weeks after I got out that she decided that she was going to do this. I was working in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I get a phone call from one of my good buddies. God bless him. He passed from an overdose from fentanyl. Real good dude. Very sad. He gives me a call. I call him Big Evil. So Big Evil gives me a call. I'm working. He asks me what I'm doing. I'm like, I'm working, bro. So, dude, I really hope you're not in Utah right now. He's like, well, I'm not. Like, are you sure? I was like, yeah, I'm pretty fucking sure. So, well, David's gone and he's missing, and the cops are looking for him. And I laughed. And I was like, oh, so she finally decided to do it. What a dumb bitch. The timing couldn't be worse for her. Couldn't be worse. Well, it was quite interesting because she was touting online on Facebook, making posts like, oh, I hope they find him. I hope he's okay. Playing that alibi bullshit. Well, the cops aren't dumb. They never have been. Like, and if you treat them like they don't know what they're doing, you're fucking sadly mistaken. Come on now. There's a lot of loose ends that you need to cover if you're going to make someone disappear. And the number one rule is you don't involve other people. Ever. You don't involve others. Another big part is that you're planning on getting away with it. Not knowing the person is a big issue, because the first thing the cops do is look to anybody that's associated with him at all. And they go to all of them. They do their due diligence. So she's playing this fucking game online. And I even talked to her while I was there in Arizona, and I told her, you're a dumb bitch. Like, you really think nobody knows? Like, you think that we're that stupid? Like, come on, dude. For one, I know you. I already know. Like, you're burnt. Well, 7 days later, they have enough evidence to make arrests. They arrest all 3 co-defendants. And since the feds were involved, and I was told that if something ever happened to this dweeb, that I'd be suspect number 1, I tried making contact with the feds and ended up leaving a message saying, hey, if there's any questions you guys have for me, I'd have no problem answering them. Well, oddly enough, they didn't ever hit me back, which is really interesting because of my activities. I already had the feds on my trail. And when I was in Arizona, they weren't really up my butt because I wasn't doing anything. They knew I wasn't involved. Let's just say that. They knew I wasn't. They didn't care. They didn't need questions for me. They knew what they were doing. So they arrest them all. And that's how that played out. So I'm going to post the video with Mariah. I'm not trying to say that the killing was justified. However, I don't have a problem with it. Main reason is because over time, during this whole thing, there was things coming up that Mariah was coming forth with about her dad taking her to the park and touching her in private areas. And it just sparked more rage. And I had already made the decision, regardless of my decision to leave Kelly, that this dude was going to fucking disappear no matter what. It was going to happen. But I was abiding my time. It was going to happen. And she got impatient and thought she could fucking do it, and obviously failed miserably. And she'll be in federal prison until she's 65 years old. Her co-defendants, the lady that was the getaway driver, she got 2 years in state. Hollywood, he got, I don't even know, it was like 149 years or something retarded like that. And he had to do a crazy amount of time in the state of Arizona before they shipped him to Fed. I didn't really pay attention because I didn't really give a fuck at that point. And what's really weird is because of my mess ups and ended up going to jail again, I ran into all of them. On my way back from, or on my way to prison, or on my way back, one or the other, I don't know, I was on a bus. and I ran into her roommate. We talked. I ran into Hollywood. He apologized to me, asking if we were cool. He didn't want any problems with me because of the bullshit that he was, sleeping with Kelly or whatever the fuck. But I really didn't care at that point. I had nothing for him. I thought, I felt bad for him more than anything because he had to fucking deal with that bitch. And I already made the mistake of, degrading my standards and lowering my standards, thinking that if I lowered my standards that I could find somebody that would be authentic and be loyal, and obviously that wasn't the case. Ugly bitches want attention more than the hot chicks. It doesn't matter. You just can't trust them. It is what it is. So I even ran into Kelly while she was in the jail. She was basically just acting like we were still married, and that I should be waiting for her to get out, and I pretty much laughed that off. Like that's not happening. So yeah, that's the story. I'll post the video of us asking Mariah what had happened with her father, so you guys can see that, and then we'll discuss the next story that comes up. Peace out and God bless everybody.